This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm Bud, your host, here with Menace Mikey. Today, you had one job, Mike. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we have new guests on the pod, new actual announcement today. Member of the team, George Kossl, now is joining the VXP team. Many of you know him. George, welcome to the pod, bro.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
I love it. Now, before we get into all the real business stuff today, Mikey had one job before he got on the pod. It is 3:06 as we are recording in the afternoon. And you were supposed to turn on the crock pot, Mikey?
Yeah. I
At
just
what
got a
time?
text. 1 o'clock. I had one fucking job today. Turn on the crock pot at 1 o'clock. Notes, all this stuff, right? But it's been a busy day. I've been doing real work. I'm not a cook. Right,
I'm not a cook. I've been doing.
I'm helping people sell beer. That's my real job. So, and then I just got the text. You turn the crock pot on, right? Ooh, shit! So I just ran up there. Instead of putting it on low at 1, I think I'll put it on high. It's 3. It should still be done at the same time, right? Just cook a little bit faster.
Oh, that's awesome! I love it. Well, sorry, Jamie. Dinner will be late tonight.
Yeah, it's fine.
Or it'll be dry because you overcooked it on high.
I put it on high. It burned to the bottom.
I love it. Well, George, welcome to the VXP family. We're excited to have you on the team. For everybody listening, George will be joining us. His first week was a couple weeks ago. This is the first announcement talking about it publicly. So we are excited to have George on the team as our new vice president of sales. George, give the people a little bit of a background on who you are and where you came from and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, first off, it's an amazing opportunity. I'm super pumped up to be here.
We've only been talking about this for years now.
For years. But hey, good things take time, right? But so, it's fun though, too, because, I started in the industry way back when the world was coming to an end, right? Y2K.
Yeah.
And, but what was fun is that, so we had a legacy RAS system, the world's coming to an end. And really the what we saw pretty quickly is that there's so many things, even then, that a wholesaler was fragmented with doing. And technology, as it continues to grow and everything, there are some things that were, mobile computing was really coming into its own at that point. And so what's kind of fun being here is that, we saw that opportunity. We brought forth a mobile app in the AB space, AB mobility, sales orders. But really the key thing that really drove change for that is our ability to put account level, like drive activity at the sales level, but be able to track it, trace it, review it, and take those results and adjust. And so kind of, right back in my sweet spot, right? And although clearly things have gotten a lot more complex, but so has technology. And so it's fun to see the change. And I'm super excited to be here, working, for the last 25 years with technology, and not technology for the sake of technology, but I've always been passionate about understanding the business problem we're trying to solve or the opportunity that we can achieve, and utilizing that technology to help people really drive change and efficiency in their business.
Yeah, I love it. And like for the crew on context, mobility is a system that Anheuser-Busch developed for objectives and incentive tracking. And that is a lot of what VXP is starting to do now as well, and is doing for clients on objective and incentive tracking. Automated, published daily, giving the reps update in their mobile. Now it's an iPad or an Android or device or a cell phone in some way. They're an iOS or an Android device. So a homecoming back home, right, George?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we've known each other forever because you came and installed mobility at Atlas. Because I remember when you made a trip back by Atlas when I had started in the business, you walked in, you were like, "Oh, hi, Sandy." And Sandy was like, "Oh, hi, George."
Yeah, I think you were, maybe
junior high or high school, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I think I was in high school.
No, I'm sure you were. But yeah, it's just a small world, right? But a world that we all know and love.
Very small. So you've spent a large amount of your career in technology on the beverage space. Now we're excited to come home here. Like, what makes, what gets you most excited to tackle the industry opportunity and working with the VXP team?
Well, I think there's a couple facets to that too, right? Is that we all know, and we constantly hear it, read it, right? The complexity of the industry, right? Whether that's portfolio expansion, whether that's people challenges, but again, what's exciting is that having spoken with you and watching where VXP has been and grow, and listening to other wholesalers talk about their successes, their excitement of what they've been able to achieve specific to their business. It really does it excites me to know that we are able to impact those businesses in that way, right? But it's, working with a group of guys and gals, right? But, you have, to overuse a term, but you've walked a mile in their shoes. You've run distributorships, right? You've solved these problems, but you also, the group has an innate capability, an innate understanding of how technology really does make that difference, right? Because if you think about it, there's so much data, there's so much information that everybody has, and it's overwhelming at times to go, man, how can I use that, right? So not only with VXP is it a solution, but it delves very deeply into the process, right? We are, as a group, right, innately looking at what those challenges, what those opportunities are, and highlighting that, and really a part of the solution. So we lock arms and we deliver. Most of us are innately problem solvers, right? And so looking at the tools that you have, the learnings that you have, the experiences, and bringing all those together to really drive change and really show some very impactful results.
Love it. It's awesome. Awesome to hear your excitement level. I get excited talking about it with you and going through the onboarding process as well, for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny to reminisce too about back in, Y2K. And I think about back in because I started at Atlas right around 2000. It might have been the tail end of 99, maybe early 2000. And back
when you
then,
were 3?
Yeah.
You should have seen his earrings that he had in his head back then too.
It was popular back then, right? I was a 20-year-old kid. But yeah, I think all of our SKUs fit on one piece of paper, right? Because we had pedal cell routes. Pedal cell routes would go out and mostly on premise at that time, but they'd come back with beer. But yeah, their load sheets, all the SKUs fit on one piece of paper, right? So now when we fast forward to today's day and age, when we have thousands of SKUs, impossible to keep on a piece of paper. And we, as an industry, we have to lean on technology, whether it's through our accounting system or something like VXP, to help manage all of those SKUs, especially at the route level when you're in and out of accounts and you're not thinking about all 100 or thousands of SKUs that you have available and what's available or an opportunity for you. So it's just fun how everything has evolved, right? And you think in another 25 years, what are we going to be talking about?
Yeah.
Now, George, you're based out of the St. Louis area, right? You're going to be in that St. Louis area?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Awesome.
Born and raised.
How long have you been there now? You've been born and raised in that area?
Yeah, born and raised here in St. Louis.
That's awesome. And then you and Mikey share a deep passion for Jeeps as well, too, don't you?
Jeeper. Yeah. We just learned that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You have a fine collection of Jeeps. I only own one, and one day I'd love to have an old school Jeep like that black one you have. But yeah, I went to the JL from the JK, and I think your Rubicon's a JK, right?
Yep.
Don't go to the JL.
No.
I would love to be able to sell mine and go back to the JK, but they're just nothing but problems.
I've looked. It's just not worth the additional expense. It's the same. It's essentially the same vehicle.
Well, the paint's falling off. That's why you can
get
drive
the flaky paint job. Yes.
Yeah, the paint just literally flakes off, so you can drive them through trees and houses, buildings, whatever you want to. It doesn't matter.
Well, Mike's history with his Jeep is even more entertaining too, because we got it as a company vehicle at Atlas on a super deal. And the reason why it was on a super deal is it actually a lemon return, which then was returned to service. So it's even got a longer history of a rap sheet of a vehicle.
And they didn't even really disclose that. We we ordered all of our vehicles brand new, right? And at that time, it was when you were waiting 6 to 8 months for anything Chrysler related.
Right.
So we were going to order brand new, and they're like, well, we've got this one built on the lot. It only has 1,400 miles. We got a smoking deal on it. Yeah, comes to find out. Yeah, and it's had nothing but problems. Nothing but problems. But it's not just that particular Jeep. What I've learned is it's across all the JLs have the same exact problems.
Oh my! I've been mine's a 13, right? So it's not, clearly a new Jeep, but I've been, knock on wood, really had very, very few problems and nothing major. So tomorrow the transmission will probably fall out.
Yeah, don't say that, George.
I would for sure. 100%. 100%. Well, George, with your new role at VXP, you're going to be reaching out, working with wholesalers around talking about VXP too. One of the things with your background is what makes technology successful in the beverage industry. So with your experience and you're talking to wholesalers and everything else, I think this is a great little opportunity to kind of share what makes implementations of technologies you work with successful and which ones don't. And if there's any examples or stories you have to share on that, I think that's a good, with your knowledge and history, it just makes a ton of sense to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously through the years, implementing hundreds of systems, whether it's, specific or route accounting, ERP solutions. I think the key thing with anything, right, is you're making that change to drive some type of result or some type of behavior, right? No one's making a change for the sake of change. And I think the key thing that when we see the big successes is leadership, right? Whether that's ownership, senior leadership, middle management, but they own it, right? They know what the benefit that it can bring the business. They articulate that to the team, right? And they get them in the boat, right? So it's not just, hey, we're making a change. It's here's why. Here's the benefit. And guess what? With anything, there are trade-offs, right? Life's a series of trade-offs. So, but helping the team understand that, hey, we're going to do these things. It may add a few minutes to your part of the business, but for maybe the delivery side or the merchandising side, it's going to save them, or it's going to bring this value to them, or it's going to bring value to the retailer. And so when that leadership team and when the team gets involved and it truly is a change for the business and the value proposition for the business, and that they're a key part of that, I think those make for very, very successful changes and implementations, right? I think the other part of it, though, too, is that, and this is really what excites me as I learn more and more about VXP and listening to, talking with some of your customers or the customer base, is how quickly that the impact, the results are seen, right? So it's like, it's like anything. So everybody uses, especially early in the year, the analogy of, I've got a great workout plan for the year, right? I'm going to diet, I'm going to exercise, but, anybody that has gone down that path, I think that the biggest thing is when they see change, right? It's sort of like, hey, I lost a pound, or I can bend over and touch my toes, or whatever it is. It's when you can quickly start to see and incremental changes, right? It's not big bang, but helping people, identifying who are the early adopters, who are the ones that really get it, and hold them up as an example, right? And what I mean by that too is not necessarily, hey, look at, Mikey, he's the greatest thing, but saying, hey, work with your peers and help them, show them what you're doing. How are you achieving the results that you are, right? Because, peer to peer, sometimes it's a lot less daunting than, an external third party person,
Mm-hmm.
or even, just, a leader in your organization. It's my, my buddy that we've worked together with for years, or somebody that they know and respect. And so that just really helps them, get past some of those humps, right? Because people are afraid to ask the dumb question, right? Because there are no dumb questions.
Yeah.
So every time we go on site, Mikey, it's like, hey, speak now or forever hold your peace on logins. Like, you better speak up now.
Yeah, it's amazing
Right.
how many people won't speak up, because we hold a series of I wouldn't call them webinars, but we meet on Zoom with the whole sales team prior to being on site, and how many people just don't speak up during even just dedicated hours for questions. And then you get on site and it's just like all the questions come at once. I can't even get logged in. What's my password? It's like, whoa, you waited a month. let's get this going. But and technology sometimes can be a little tricky with different teams, because we're dealing with reps that are young, maybe in their 20s, definitely technology savvy, and then we're dealing with reps that are seasoned veterans, right, that haven't relied on any bit of technology to help them sell beer in their entire career. So there is that fine balance of some people just get it right off the get and they run with it, and then there's some that are like, I don't even need this, I've been selling beer without it for so long, why do I have this type of deal? So and we have to deal with that. So, I'll call you the technology wizard, right? Because you've been in technology now for a long time. So, and I'm sure you're used to dealing with those kind of battles. But that's one thing that we have to face. So I don't know if you have any kind of insight or help as far as getting that across the finish line with some people that are
Well,
just
yeah, it's kind of interesting you
anti-technology.
say that too. And you think about like the cast of characters in an organization, right? But there's always that tribal knowledge, and I think the opportunity and where it can be very very impactful is generally they're organized around teams, right? And there are team goals and all of those. So you've got the old guy that he's got the secret decoder ring and can figure it all out.
Decoder ring, yes.
And you got the young guy or gal, right, who is just a whiz at the technology. But so again, as long as there's that mutual respect of, hey, what can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? And oh, by the way, we've got this common goal. And if we take those common understandings and quote unquote that tribal knowledge and come together, then we're going to succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you can really see some step change happening with people really saying, hey, you know what, we're a team and we're going to achieve more together, and let's go make it happen.
Mm-hmm. I remember at some point in time, we were making an upgrade off of the bricks, the old school bricks for delivery, George. And we were moving, this was early in my career, we were moving to an iOS based delivery application of some kind. I don't remember what it was. And I remember Sandy from our crew just being so worried about the drivers wouldn't get it and like they wouldn't understand how to do it. It's like, what's the problem with what is the issue here? Because for me, as a young kid who had a cell phone in his pocket for much of his adolescence, it was like, why don't you give me a break? Like, no big deal. And well, she was just like, well, these guys, they don't know how to work this technology. They're just going to call with all these problems. And I saw JD. He kind of came in right while we were having this conversation. I was sitting in the front office with Sandy, and JD is like the quintessential beer delivery guy. He's been doing it. I mean, what did he retire, Mike, with like 40 years? We gave him a golden key replica of his semi-truck key.
Yeah.
Like 42 years he was at the business or the company or something like that.
It was his life. Delivering beer was JD. And without delivering beer, he just didn't know what else to do.
Yeah. So he walks in, sits down, starts to, pull all the change out of his pocket and all the money out of his pocket that he's got in all these different places that he's carefully collected and managed throughout the day, and starts to unload himself onto Sandy's desk with all the checks and everything else. And we're shooting the shit about how they're not going to be able to manage these, iPads or these iPods, and like they're going to die from these bricks. And he sits down and he pops open a phone and he's got a smartphone in his hand. And I'm like, JD, what kind of phone is that? He's like, oh, it's a brand new Android thing. And I look at Sandy, I'm like, if he complains to you at all about a new iOS device, tell him to buzz off. If he can manage his smartphone, he can manage an Apple device. And that was the last that we talked about it. So there is an element of like the team's personal lives might be connecting with technology. It's particularly like some of the hardware stuff on the Android or iOS that we might not be have exposed them to at this time. I think we're long past this drama, but it's just a funny story of like, the team might be at a different place in their personal lives than what the business is, and they might actually be a little bit farther along and using it in their personal lives, and the business might be ready to.
Could you imagine going back in time to the bricks, but using them now? Because the bricks didn't understand like brands, right? You couldn't just type in a brand or a package. You had to use
You had to know
package
the
codes.
number.
You had to use
Yeah.
item numbers. Could you
Yep.
imagine or memorizing every single item number that's available right now?
Well, and
I
our
mean,
numbers were only 3 digits, right? And they
yeah, in
had
the
no
beginning.
alpha. They had no they were only numeric. They had no
Yep.
alpha feature to it, and it was just 101 and 201 and
Was it?
201. It was just like no way.
That was a Bud Light and a loose bottle. Bud Light and a Budweiser loose bottle, by the way, 101 and 201.
Yep.
301 was a Michelob.
They were still those numbers when we sold them. They were still the
Yep.
numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'd expanded into some 5-digit numbers at that point in time just for
Yeah, we
fun,
had
but
to.
we kept the old school. The old school numbers still stayed there.
But, you know, the key thing though is kind of fast forward to today. I mean, think about like, again, that complex portfolio, and you know, let's face it, when you're in the wholesale business, right? You've got three challenges, right? You've got three sometimes competing goals, right? You've got your retailer who's got whatever it is that they want. On the other side of that, you've got your supplier, and then ultimately you've got your business that you need to run. So I think the really exciting thing, though, you know, especially with VXP, is that how are we able to serve the needs of all three of those, you know, those entities, and at the same time empower that person to know that they're able to make a difference both in how they achieve their personal goals and results, but also ultimately manage through, you know, hey, my retailer's only got this much space and we got 17 new SKUs, and oh, by the way, you know, oh, but not only are they SKUs, but it's like, okay, I've got 5 package configurations of the same product, and how am I going to use that product? And so giving them the knowledge, right, and giving them the power to say, yeah, I've got these core goals, but I have some flexibility in how I can drive change and be a part of that, and being that problem solver. I mean, number one, it gives street cred with, you know, if I'm that rep, I've changed the dynamic where I can influence that conversation with a retailer, right? Obviously, in some accounts, it's, you know, some chain accounts it's done for you, but you know, technology's come that far along. It's like I'm not so much worried about, you know, hey, is it product 101 or 201? I mean, I am, but I shouldn't have to be specific down to that number. It's really what is it that's going to be that step change driver for that business change, right? And oh, by the way, too, is it's just like, um, again, if I look at the bigger picture, and if part of what is instilled in me is that we're a team, right? So if I just put something in here to get a check mark in the box, and 3 weeks later or 3 months later, right, I'm having to drag that out, or somebody else is. Well, what did we really achieve? We just drove a lot more cost into the equation versus efficiency. We've done nobody a favor with that approach, right? And so getting them in the boat and really helping them truly understand, and again with technology, and I don't want to be necessarily so technology focused because it's just a component of the bigger picture, but helping them understand the business and the drivers, the processes, the impacts across that business. And oh, by the way, because there's so much information behind that, now technology is going to make that really simple and put it in front of my face in a logical and intuitive way. Now I'm really able to do some really cool stuff, right? And get away from the, all it's done is just been, instead of a paper checklist, now it's a electronic checklist. It's so much more than that, right? And and the way that the VXP team has been able to continue to evolve that, but again, bring in you know, the experience, right? And really just say, have you thought about this? And here's some things that we can do, and then watch that then become part of the fabric of how those reps are thinking, right? And how that changes the business. That's super impactful, and for me, it kind of, you know, spine chilling, right? To see, because that's always the fun part, right? Is not like, oh, look at this cool stuff that we have. It's really looking at how, you know, where are the changes, right? Whether it's something as simple as you've changed the person Because they're no longer afraid of technology, or they've learned something new and now they're applying that all the way through, hey, what's the bottom line to the business? And so that trickle down effect or trickle across effect is really, really cool too.
Yeah, I think what you said there too really stuck out to me is that gets the rep thinking, right? And that's something that we really drive down to our sales force is we want them thinking, not just doing what they're told, not just checking boxes like you said, but getting that kind of information, that data out in front of them really gets them thinking like, hey, what can I do to get this product to move if it's not moving? And what can I do with that space with something else to get a little bit more turns, right? Or more profit out of it. And being able to drill down, like we talked about the thousands of SKUs, drill it down to a few options, filter it down to a couple things, have a few playbooks in your mind when you go to the account owner or manager and, hey, this just isn't working, or, hey, I really wanted to add this. And this is kind of what I was thinking. And first roadblock comes up, boom, block and tackle, and you're moving to your second plan. So to be able to just drill all that stuff down in a seconds, not have to go back to playbooks and or your boxes, your spreadsheets and everything else. But yeah, I like exactly what you said there. It gets the reps thinking.
Well, and as you characterize too, if you think about this, if all I was checkbox Charlie, right, and every day it's just here's do this, do this, do this, and it really just becomes a droning effect, right, where you're not engaged, and so while there's always going to be a portion of that that's happening, but again, thinking about enabling me to be a problem solver, right, to be creative, to know in certain accounts I have that rapport and I can really leverage that, right? Because I can say, hey, have you thought about this? We could do that. And really then that value add. So yeah, you've got competitors, but if I can bring that dynamic to that account, let's face it, just because I bring in 14 or 140 new SKUs, I don't have room for no one has room for all of those, right? And so for me to be able to make those changes and make our suggestions and show the retailer how not only is it going to impact them, I know it's going to impact the business that I work for, and it's going to impact me personally because there's an incentive component that says, hey, if I drive certain behaviors, if I drive certain results, I have a financial goal and a financial achievement that I've made, so that now everybody wins, right? But and it's that understanding why. I think again, people are not only, do they want to feel like they've driven a result and achieved something, but most people want to constantly learn, right? Whether they say they want to or not, um, they really do, right? Because it's just it drives their why. It helps them define what their why is if they
Yeah.
don't know, right?
Yeah.
But it's just energizing, right? It's like, wow, I learned something new, and I see now how that works, or how it can be step change for a business, and I think people value that too, especially like if a retailer is like, dude, that is amazing, let's do that, right? So now they confirm that, and it really just it just kind of builds the energy that continues to grow and grow. And then they tell their friends and they tell their friends, right? And so it can get infectious pretty quickly.
Yeah. So you talk about that idea of like why and why is this important? I always go back to the, kindergarten, first grade, elementary school. You get plopped into a school and you're doing a project and you're like, well, what am I learning this for? And it's like, because the teacher told you to, or because dad told you to, or
Right.
because mom told you to. And like that is something that we get annoyed with as children. And then eventually, like we either get used to listening to it or we get to a point where it's like, we're just going to let it go. There's so much more power in explaining to people the why behind we're trying to do something, and the opportunity of showing them the information, getting them to understand it, and then understand the why of what we're trying to do. Checkbox Charlie, I'm going to steal.
I
That's
am
no
too.
fun for me. Like that's easy to do. That's no
Right.
fun for me though. Getting somebody to change their behavior and interpret the why without somebody who has the industry knowledge or has the market knowledge of what to do, that is way more powerful for me and way more positive for the business because there's too many opportunities. We all have hundreds of, so I mean, hundreds of suppliers is tough, but you have got hundreds and hundreds of brands. You got 50 to 70 suppliers, hundreds and hundreds of brands, thousands and thousands of SKUs. There are not enough checkboxes in the world for you to be able to capture all of the opportunities and all of the capabilities that each individual rep has. You have to find a way to influence them without a checkbox in some way, shape, or form.
I'm stealing the Checkbox Charlie name as well. I'm going to be using that a lot. But I think as an organization, right, as times are changing, markets are shrinking, the industry is shrinking, we don't have as many people in the office or as admin to oversee all of our sales staff, right? So we want to really move from that Checkbox Charlie to a think on my own Owen, right? And we want to just build our entire sales staff of people that are capable of thinking on their own, thinking on the fly, making their own decisions without somebody telling them what to do every step of the way. A, we don't have time for that as leaders. And B, we shouldn't have to do that. We've hired trained professionals to be out there making those decisions on their own. And if we supply them with the data and the knowledge, they should be able to do it without us having to tell them.
Well, and it's that experiential learning too that creates that stickiness, right? So it's getting out there, doing it, seeing the results, adjusting, and then celebrating those wins. And I think we like you early on. You'd ask the question like, as you implement systems, what works, what doesn't work, right? I think we do a good job. I'm sure a lot of the organizations do as well, but is sharing those wins, right? And that I think it's inspiring. It's gonna going back to the person that's afraid to ask the question. Well, now maybe they're going to say, hey, look at what Susie was able to achieve, and here's how she did it and went about it, and so what was her playbook. So now I can start to, if I'm that person that's afraid to ask that question, I can start to absorb that, and then behind the scenes I can tap her on the shoulder and say, hey, listen, I've got this account, I'm seeing this, it sounds very similar to yours. How did you make that happen, or what would you do, right? And so it builds that intricate network of just learning, and that whole experience, right, is really what I think changes it, because we all, if something looks intriguing, you want to try it, right? And the thing of it is too is that the intuitiveness of the software, the data that's available. You can try things and you can see immediately as well what those results are, right? And so I won't say there's no penalty, but there's little harm in trying things and experiencing them and see what change about you can bring. But the key thing there is there's so much information, there's so many dynamics. It's having a platform and a process too, right? So technology for the sake of technology. I think in everybody's career, they're like, oh, I'm going to buy this tool and it's going to change my world, right? But if you don't have a discipline and a process, it really limits the value that it can bring, right? The old adage, a fool with a tool is still a fool, right? So,
with the
but
technology,
what I really,
process,
really admire, of what I've seen out of VXP, and clearly our customer base of the few calls that I've been involved with, they know it, they understand it, and they certainly appreciate it, is, the amount of effort that we put in to ensure their success, right? We're committed to their success. And a lot of that is very much unheard. It's like, hey, call the hotline, by the way, you don't even get a live person anymore, hit this knowledge base. And I think all those things are, have a place, but and things like this, where you're setting up a process, you're becoming a change agent, you're investing in that again to ensure their success, because that momentum is going to build on it. So it's like, George said that if he can do it, anybody can do it, right? And so, now they're going to step up, right? And they're going to say, okay, we're ready to take over from here. Mike, I'm sure you've seen that dozens of times where, they're very cautious and reticent at first, and you walk them through them a few times, and before they're like, get out of the way, let me show you how this is done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just was on a call with a client today where they were rocking and rolling. We were doing some objectives and incentives stuff. And I go, where did you learn all that? Because I know I didn't train that person to run through and build all that stuff. And it's like, oh, so-and-so showed me how to do it. And then I just ran from there. I'm like, oh, this is great. But yeah. And back to what you mentioned earlier too, is we provide them with the technology, right? and then we put the process in place, and then after that comes the culture, right? And that's ultimately the end goal for us as an organization, is to bring that culture to life.
Yeah. So Mike, you mentioned culture, right? And so in a couple of the calls I've been on this week, um, there's this concern about, well, what sharing GP at the package level, right? And so, yes, that's a step change. Um, but what are you guys seeing in terms of, people's concern around that, and how you help, change the culture and show the value of why that information is important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's usually a big concern out the gate for some people. I don't really want to expose my gross profit to my reps, right? I don't want them to know what I'm making on a particular package. Well, guess what? The reps are already guessing what you're making, and when they're guessing, it's usually completely wrong, right? They're always going to over exaggerate what a package brings in profit wise. They're not really thinking about all the costs that go into associated with that too. So that's also a good reminder. But if we're not being clear in showing all the data to the reps, we can't really expect them to make the educated decisions that we're expecting them to make. So I want to see if my account is profitable. I want to see if a package is profitable, right? If I'm looking at an account and I'm up 10, 15% in volume, but I'm down flat to maybe 5 points on GP, that account's heading in the wrong direction. Without being exposed to that information, I never would have known that. I would have think that account's rocking away. Yeah, the volume's doing great, but hey, I need to do something on the other end to catch up the gross profit. Because if this account's rocking on volume, I need to catch up my gross profit and that trend a little bit too. And also, when we drill down to different packages, when we're just looking at packages, everybody thinks that all SKUs are created equally, right? 30% across the board, 25% across the board. It's not like that. And there's so many different variables that go package to package, SKU to SKU. So without seeing all the data, they can't make the decisions that we're really expecting them to make.
We make the business in a way that a rep is empowered to make the decision in a really smart and educated manner really fast. And I mean, from experience, we've had this firsthand experience, Mike, where, any one of our reps was managing $1 million in GP across a year's time. And yet they might be getting paid a fraction of that because the business has other expenses to take care of as well. And we never, ever had that conversation with one of our team members around, well, why am I not getting a bigger cut? There was always a reasonable explanation or understanding of, well, I've got to pay the admin team to manage the business and run the books and organize all the taxes and everything, and make sure healthcare is paid for. I've got delivery fleet to go out and drive around and deliver trucks behind the sales team, and I've got capex around the delivery fleet. I mean, I was too cheap to buy any new vehicles on a regular basis, but I hear wholesalers do that from time to time. They do buy new vehicles from time to time. Then you've got the warehouse team. The warehouse is one of the largest physical assets in the balance sheet of just having the building and paying for the building and paying maybe a mortgage on the building, but also then the utilities and the property taxes and everything to run the building. And then you've got to pay the people in the warehouse to receive the product, warehouse the product, rotate the product in the warehouse, put product on the truck and ship it back out. So there's all these other components that, we're doing ourselves a disservice if we aren't willing to have a financial education and financial literacy with your sales team. They are smarter than we give them credit for. That's one of the things we do in our training and implementation too, is we take them through a financial literacy module inside the online training. And while we're on site too, around just to be real, that what you see in revenue, what we see in GP doesn't all fall to the bottom line, that we've got all these cost components. And it's no different than when we're making money at a job. You've got your W-2 pay, your taxes, Social Security, and then any kind of below the line contributions to 401k or healthcare. Then you get your take home check that actually hits your bank account. That's like our gross profit as an individual. Now you got to pay your mortgage, got to pay your cell phone, got to pay your car payment, got to pay your food, got to pay, your property taxes. And then whatever you're left over at the end of the day, that's either your slush fund for fun or your savings. And whatever you choose to do with that, that's like a business's net income. And the only big difference, well, there's not even much difference, because once you have that left over, then you've got to decide how are you going to reinvest in your business or reinvest in your life, because the reinvestment in the business is buying new trucks, upgrading the warehouse, expanding the warehouse, investing in new dollars in wages or better benefits for your team to attract better talent. And for as a person, it's investing in that new, you want a backyard pool, you want a new, house, you want to save for a new house, you want to add a new kitchen remodel, like those kinds of things. Now you got to reinvest back in your life. You want to save for retirement. So money is not finite, and I think we are infinite. It's finite, and I think we have an opportunity to do more financial literacy training around that component. And that's one of the other things that I love doing. And to bring it back to like Joe's episode that was two weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago when we post this, like financial mindset is what he talked about. And I love that term that he brought up of like being a financial mindset, not just a volume only mindset, but bringing money into the conversation and talking about money. He saw power in that. And once we had power in that, then we could actually affect change and affect different results in the market, for sure.
Well, what was eye-opening for me was kind of really two facets there. One is that you have shared, like, when people choose not to do that or not to follow the process, there could be some very marked differences in terms of what the business results that they achieve. And that, it's fun to learn more about that. And the other one too is that, some people are like, hey, for the past 80 years, this is how we run our business and this is how we're going to continue to run it. But we see the value in some of the other things, right? So if that change, isn't today, right, it doesn't preclude them from using and gaining the benefits. They may not gain the full benefits of the software, the platform, the process, but they still can gain benefits from utilizing VXP.
100%, because we still got the objectives and incentive tools, and we make money as a wholesaler in a game of pennies and nickels and dimes. And Mike and I have just fully bought in from running a wholesaler into how you can extract as many pennies and nickels and dimes at scale and at volume, because that's the name of the game. And we just like talking to clients that are willing to take the leap of faith, which is somewhat of a leap of faith from time to time, that you can find more pennies and nickel and dimes. If you want to do a revenue model, we have just a couple wholesalers doing that revenue model instead of a GP model. It works. There are also opportunities to extract more pennies and nickels and dimes by doing the GP method as well. So it's fun. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's great because we've got tools in our tool chest. We can work with clients in a handful of different ways and engage with their sales team where that team is ready to meet the sales team. Well, George, we're so excited to have you on the team. It's a great episode today to have you on and introduce the new opportunity that you've taken to join us. And maybe you'll come to Rue this day at some point in the future, but hopefully that's many, many years from now, because we are having so much fun working with you in just the first couple of days that you've been on the team now. So for us, George, to finish up, how do people get in touch with you? You got the same cell phone number you've always gotten, right?
That's right. Well, first off, though, I mean, it's like I said, I'm super excited to be here. It's a great opportunity, and there's a lot to still accomplish in this industry, right? Because the challenges are going to keep coming. We've got a great, knowledgeable, deep team that's passionate, that lives this stuff every day, right? I mean, like you said, it's you both have a remarkable career as beer distributors, right? So now being able to bring that to fruition every single day and live it, and now scale it is really super exciting. But yeah, to your point is that, my phone number is the same as it's been for the, past 25 years, 314-616-8564. Call me up and hit me up, or George at VXPtech.com.
I love it. Love it. You can also drop us a line at our website, VXPtech.com. There's a contact form as well if you want to do it that way, and we'll get you connected with George for sure to catch up and keep in touch. So George, cannot thank you enough. I'm as excited as anybody else is. Mikey's excited. When we told everybody that you were going to join the team, Mikey was dazed and confused, was on like 5 days into his concussion protocol.
It was my first day back. It was my first day back after quite a few days off.
And he was like, his comment was, I think I'm in a dream, or that I've died and gone to heaven if George is joining the team.
Come here, let me knock you on the head a few more times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's
love
too
it.
good to be
Well,
true. Excited to have you on board, George, and look forward
thank
to
you.
a
Again,
great future together and some beers for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do great things.
just don't put me in charge of cooking dinner for the team because it won't be ready on time.
Yeah, or ski instructions, right? Or snowboarding instructions.
Yeah, I could give you those.
You guys can drive the Jeeps.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. Looking at those pictures of your Jeeps, we have to get you to Michigan so we can get some mud on those things.
That's right.
George keeps them fresh and clean, man. The Silver Fox always keeps them clean.
Not too much, but what do they call them? They're mall crawlers, right?
Mall crawlers, yeah.
Home crawlers. Love it.
I throw mud on it every once in a while.
Love it. Well, you boys rock. We appreciate y'all. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe. Please hammer the review button, give us 5 stars, and share with a friend. So, George, Mikey, cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Here's the many more.